Berkeley, obtained a Master of Science in Bioscience Engineering Technology, Food Industry in 2020. She began her PhD in Food Sciences and Nutrition at Ghent University in 2021, focusing on conceptualizing, assessing, and improving food safety culture in food processing organizations. This research was part of the QDNA project, which was funded by VLAIO. So what organization is that?
So it's VLAIO. It's the Flemish Organization for Innovation.
Thank you. And her interdisciplinary work involved close collaboration with 20 plus companies and various stakeholders. So the topic of the presentation today is food safety culture enhancement, intervention implementation in the case study with pre and post assessment comparison. So with that, I will hand over to Pauline.
Perfect. Thank you, Sophie, for the introduction. I will share my slides. Normally, you should see my slides. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So hi, everyone. I will indeed give you a short introduction on a study we did today. So in my research, I focused on food safety culture improvement. So we try to improve food safety culture in food processing organizations. And today I will show you some results of one case study and some general findings that we have learned. So, yes. So in our research, we conceptualized food safety culture in this way. So we see food safety culture as having 3 building blocks. So we have our food safety management system, which is our control and assurance activities. So everything like microbial analysis a company does, but also validation and verification activities. This is this building block. And then we have the human building block on an organizational and an individual level. So we view, we include dimensions such as leadership, communication, resources, and so on, but also dimensions such as motivation, knowledge, and compliance, and so on. So this is our basic framework we use for this research. So we view food safety culture as a multi-dimensional, but also a multi-layered construct. So I will not go into detail, but it's good to know how we conceptualize it before I go to the other results. So our first step in our research was to develop a portfolio, so a portfolio for food safety culture improvement. So what we did is we went into literature and we searched all kinds of interventions used for safety culture improvement. So not specifically food safety culture, but we went a bit broader, so safety culture. And also general strategies we could see to be effective for food safety culture. So we collected these in literature, and then we presented these to a panel of food industry experts. So basically quality managers, CEOs, production managers, and so on, who have been active in the food industry for at least 5 years. So we called this our stakeholder consultation, and with them we discussed each intervention we found in literature to see if they saw any potential in using the intervention for food safety culture improvement. So we discussed each of the interventions, their concepts, but also about their implementation. So we asked the industry practitioners if they saw any potential barriers for the intervention, such as this intervention will take a lot of time, so time could be a potential barrier to implement, and also if they had any other comments regarding concept or implementation. So our resulted portfolio is a kind of ranking. So for each dimension, we have, so this for the dimension communication, we have a list of interventions ranked based on the panel's perceptions. And then we have the barriers for success we include every time. So for implementation, we consider the barriers to make sure the intervention has the most chance of success. So just to give you an idea, for example, for the communication application dimension, an intervention could be to visualize training. So instead of giving more theoretical training, you could use demonstrations, practical examples in more visual way. So this is just an example. The portfolio of interventions is also published, so you can find the whole list, the whole ranking, all the barriers and so on in the publication. So using this portfolio, we wanted, of course, to implement interventions in a case study. So what we did in total was 4 case studies, and we did this kind of structure. So first we did a full food safety culture assessment phase to see, does this company have any gaps in their food safety culture maturity? Then based on these gaps, we implemented an intervention using an implementation plan, which I will talk about later. And then we did a post-assessment in the exact same way as the pre-assessment, so we could compare the two to see if we saw any improvements. So today I will only focus on one case study. So it's case 2 in this study, which is, just to give you an idea, a company with 80 employees. They prepared meals, like ready-to-eat meals to put in the microwave, and soups. So our implementation plan is an 8-step plan. So we don't just start the intervention, we use a structured method based on change theory. So the first part is, of course, choosing the intervention which we will implement based on the assessment. So we chose to do this in a meeting with management, but it would also be possible to include other employees as well. And in this phase, we also consider differences in perception. So in our analysis phase, we analyze if there are differences in perception. For example, if leaders have different perceptions than non-leaders, if people who have everyday contact with food products have different perceptions than employees for which this is not the case. So we consider differences in perceptions. And then we start our preparation. So very important in our implementation plan is sharing what we are doing throughout the whole company. So before we start any intervention implementation, we always made it a point to emphasize the reason for change. So we also always stop to acknowledge the gap that exists. For example, if there is a problem with communication, we always made some kind of poster, for example, or some kind of announcement to say, look, we have a problem with this communication, with some kind of specific indicator, for example, and we are aiming to change this in the future, just to get everyone on the same page that there is something that we need to change. Then we establish a guiding coalition. So this is a group of people from all different levels of the company, all different kind of people who guide the intervention with us. We have a meeting with them. We collect their feedback. We develop some vision for the change, like how do they want to see the company change, what's a priority for them in the change process, and we establish goals and possible rewards. And then we disseminate again, so we share everything that we aim to do, we share the intervention and the goals, and only then we implement the intervention itself. When we've been implementing for a while, we do refreshers, so we share again what we are doing and why. And in the end, we aim to create a long-lasting change. So it's some kind of interventions. They are more of a continuous process. For example, if you implement a system of KPIs for food safety culture, and so on, or something like this, and you say, okay, we will monitor the KPIs every month. This is just a continuous process you can keep on doing. But some interventions are more distinct, such as organizing focus groups, for example. And then we try to find a way of creating a long-lasting change. So to include, for example, the organization of focus groups in the quality control in the quality system of the company. So, for example, to say, okay, we will do this every year or every 2 years or every 3 years. We will make a procedure for this. We will include this in our yearly goals, for example, or yearly company goals. We try to find ways to make a sustainable change so that the maturity is not just improved for a couple of months, but to make sure it's a long-lasting improvement. So in our case study, we found a specific gap that we would like to improve, which was for the dimension commitment. And the specific gap was that we found that employees don't feel actively involved in food safety related matters. So they say, okay, we know it's important, food safety, we are motivated, we are aware of the risks, we have enough resources, but we don't really feel like we can actively give our opinions and like these are taken into account. So they don't feel like they can actively take part in food safety related matters. So this was the gap in the company we aim to improve. So what we did sessions. So with every team, we organized focus group sessions on food safety based on their processes they were doing in each team. And they gave their opinion on things that they feel like are not going well yet. So we let them identify improvement opportunities that they personally feel are important. So sometimes these were very straightforward issues. For example, we don't have the right materials to clean. But sometimes their improvement opportunities were more indirect, affecting food safety. For example, a point that came up quite often was teamwork. So, for example, there are some issues in our team. Some people don't really get along. We have some discussions. And at the end of the day, we leave to go home in a bit of a haste. So not all food safety matters are done as they should. So often these improvement opportunities were things that came up that even the quality manager or the other leaders were really not aware of yet, but were affecting food safety. So we listed all their improvement opportunities, and they picked a action point. So for their team, they picked an action point they wanted to focus on for the coming months. So each team chose their own priority to work on for the coming months. Of course, all the other general food safety management and food safety culture structures also stayed into place. But additionally, they chose an action point to improve. In this way, they could actively choose their own focus for the coming months. So then we did the post-assessment. The pre-assessment we did before the focus groups, then we did the focus groups, and then we did the post-assessments so that we could compare. And in this case study, we saw a significant improvement for 3 dimensions. So for our targeted dimension, which was commitment, but also for resources and risk awareness. Comparing the sum of the pre and the post-assessment, doing the statistical analysis, for these 3 dimensions, the p-value was significant. When we zoom in on the specific indicators, and specific indicator we aim to improve, so which was in my company, employees are actively involved by leaders in food safety related matters. We view that this one also had a significant improvement. This is an overall view. So for our targeted dimension commitment, we had the largest improvement. So when we do post minus pre-assessment, I think someone's sound is on. Maybe if it would be possible to go mute, it would be nice. So in commitment, we had the largest improvement, but for the other dimensions, we also had an improvement. This shows that the dimensions are, of course, like we know, interconnected. Because we did the focus groups aiming to improve commitment, but of course this could also, for example, improve perception about resources, as it takes a lot of time to organize these things. This could also be viewed as an improvement of leadership, with leaders aiming to involve their employees more in food safety related matters. So it's normal that the other dimensions are influenced as well, and this is something we saw in all cases. We also collected qualitative data just to give you some insights. So these are some examples from the pre-assessment and these from the post-assessment. So in the pre-assessment, we got a lot of answers like we don't get updates, we never get any updates, we're just trying to keep things clean. We only hear when something goes wrong. We never get any updates, but we don't want any either, and so on. While in the post-assessment, we got a lot more positive feedback, such as we get a lot of training meetings, we fill in questions on the PC. The quality employees take samples, and we always get feedback. So we really felt an improvement in the qualitative data as well.
Let me cook first. Okay, I put this in a 5 minutes.
So when we compare the data integration from the pre and the post assessment, we see that this gap, which we aim to improve, which was here, also disappeared, so is now mature, but we still have some other gaps to work on in this company. So our conclusions. So the company that I highlighted was one of our success stories, but we of course also had companies in which it was more difficult to improve food safety culture and which we did not see any positive effects of the intervention we implemented. And then we started to look for the reasons for this, and we did comparative studies with other cases which did have success. So what we found were some critical elements for improvement, with management commitment and active involvement being one of the most important ones. So in some cases we had high management involvement, and in those cases we saw improvements, and in other cases we had low management involvement in which we did not see any improvement. We also found that implementing interventions on a group level is much more effective than implementing interventions on an employee level. So what I mean with this is some cases chose to do the focus groups, for example, with all teams and with all employees from each team, while other cases chose to only involve selected employees or selected teams and not everyone. And we saw that this really limited the effect of the intervention, which is of course also logical as we aim to develop food safety culture in the whole company. So only involving selected employees is really counterproductive. What we also saw is, of course, after implementing an intervention, we still have gaps to work on. So food safety culture is really a continuous cycle of improvement. You will not reach a fully mature culture by implementing only one intervention. It's really a continuous process that the company has to keep on working on, has to keep on developing its culture on the long term. Yes, I think I've shared the most important things. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you for your nice presentation. I guess that we have time for questions. Anyone has any question?
I have a question. It's Wiki from Malaysia. Thank you, Pauline, for the terrific presentation and work. I just have one question because I know that food safety culture it's going to take a long time to see a culture shift. Do you mind me asking, from the pre-assessment to post-assessment, how long did you take? I mean, the whole process. Mm-hmm. How long did you take to complete the the interval time?
Yes, so the total time, so from the start of the pre-assessment until the end of the post-assessment was 3 years.
3 years.
Yes, okay. Indeed, it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's close to I think the shortest time that was published by Loan previously was 3 years plus to see a culture shift. But yeah, it's a terrific job. Thank you so much, Pauline.
Thank you. No, you're absolutely right. It can take a lot of time to see a shift. But I also think some small actions can have a more direct effect. For example, I think Sophie did a lot of work on nudges. So I think small things can also create maybe an effect more quickly than all the years, but indeed to really have a shift in the full maturity stage and really have, make big changes, you need quite some time. Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Indeed, I have a question for you, Pauline. Yes, because I guess that your work's very big, and I'm very interested in to know how was the recruitment of the experts to the portfolio, and also how it was for the recruitment for the case studies too, because sometimes it's very difficult to engage people to participate in the research and in the research that take a lot of time. So it's even more difficult than that. How it was for you?
Yeah, I feel like so maybe first for the companies, it was quite, we sent out a general email to a lot of contacts we had, and then we got 4 replies of companies wanting to join. But I think it's because of the European legislation, so they were all like a bit panicked, like we have to work on our food safety culture now, but we don't know how. So I think that was a big incentive for them, and we were quite lucky with the timing on that, because I feel like otherwise it would have been much more difficult. But what we then had is that, for example, there was one company who joined, so who said, okay, we want to be a case study. But then once they were in, they did not really actively work with us, and I had to really push them and send 100 emails before they replied and so on. So that's, I feel like sometimes it was also enough for them to just put on their management review, okay, we are part of the food safety culture project, but then they did not really actively cooperate. So then I really had to push hard, and this was also a company in which we did not see any positive effects. So I feel like they had incentives to join, but they did not have many incentives per se to really actively want to improve their culture. And then for the experts in the portfolio, we had like a guiding coalition for the project. So for the QDNA project, we had our guiding group of companies, so we sent it out to them, and then they like around 17 of them, they replied, okay, we want to work on this together. So I feel like I got quite lucky, because I think it can be very challenging to find companies and like experts to join. But I feel like a lot has to do with the legislation.
Yeah, thank you. And were all of them from Belgium?
Yes.
Or other countries? Yeah, Belgium.
Yeah, okay. So all of them are from companies that had a factory in Belgium. So, but many of the companies also have factories in other countries.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Sorry. Hi, Pauline, I have another question. Sorry.
Perfect. Go for it.
It's regarding the focus group discussion.
Yes.
I think, do you have any problems that you encounter, like a language barrier, or are those focus group discussion informants, they are all from Belgium or any other nationalities?
Yeah, so indeed, we have like a very trend of multicultural workforces in Belgium. So indeed, language barriers are one of the barriers we had a lot in our portfolio, so listed as potential barriers to success. And I feel like the company, they chose this kind of intervention, a focus group intervention, because they knew the language barriers in their company were limited. So it was not really a hindering factor. But I feel like if you are a company that has a lot of nationalities without like a mutual language everyone understands, that this is not the best intervention to do. Or maybe you could like use some kind of translating service, or maybe make like a buddy system so someone can translate for someone, but it would make it much more complex. So I think then in that case there may be better options, better interventions to do because of language barriers.
Totally understand, because this is what I am. I am facing right now.
Yeah.
So because in Malaysia we are highly reliant on foreign migrant workers. So most of them, yeah, they hardly understand our common language, and usually they are guided by their supervisors or they have the team lead. So
Yeah.
we are looking at the team leaders. We are looking at interviewing having focus group discussion or interviewing the team leaders instead, because the team leaders can understand very well.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Pauline, we also have a question in the chat from Carolina. So she said, Pauline, could you share with us your experience with the focus group? How employees participated actively?
So indeed, yeah, so you always have, I feel like, some strong voices. So some people who really have waited for the opportunity to share their opinion and really take this chance to do it. And then there are also always the ones who are a bit more quiet and who I had to like try to engage a little more. So I really tried to make a point of it that everyone, so we worked with the post-it, so everyone had to write something on the post-its. They feel like that is an improvement opportunity. And then we collected the post-its and we went over each point. So it was in a way also a little bit anonymous because I did not ask who wrote this on this post-it, but I tried to make it more like a group conversation. So I think that also helped maybe the more shy ones to still voice their opinion on a post-it. But there were for sure sometimes also focus groups where they didn't feel like it, or they felt like this and still another task I have to do while I have so much work already and I don't want to do this. And then I also did not push it because the goal of the intervention was to have them actively involved, so not to make it another task. So it really depended on the team, on the situation, on the company. But it's indeed something that was a bit challenging sometimes to have everyone actively contribute.
Yes, thank you so much, Pauline, and also for everyone here today. So we are on time. Thank you for that. And we also would like to wish a Merry Christmas for everyone and Happy New Year. Next year, we will have another meetings, another sections of Salus Coffee Talks, and we hope to have you join with us. Okay? See you.
Perfect.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Have a nice Friday.
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye bye.